I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself, or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry. Hi, everybody.
This is Apologies Accepted,
the podcast.
And I'm not Theo.
I'm not Juliet.
Awesome. It's great that we're who we are and not someone else. And we'll be talking about that actually in today's podcast.
Ooh, look, you're so smart.
Isn't that the best? Theo, how's your week been? What's shaking bacon?
What's shaking bacon? Okay, well, so I told you pre-show, I'll just confess it to the audience, that during the week, something will happen and I'll be like, God, this is so cool. I should mention this on the podcast. And then I forget about it. So I started keeping notes and my notes don't make any sense. But I think I've got a handle on a couple of things. So one thing that I wanted to share with you and the audience is, that my husband is Scottish and he has a Scottish accent. And we go to Scotland, and I hear Scottish accents a lot for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And so I can't do a Scottish accent, nor should I ever try to do a Scottish accent. It is awful. It sounds like a drunk leprechaun. And by leprechaun, I mean, what was that guy that chased the rainbow? The Cheerio?
A leprechaun?
Oh,
yeah.
Where's Me Lucky Charms guy? Whatever cereal that is.
That's Irish.
Oh, God. And I just said whatever cereal that is, and the cereal is Lucky Charms. Advertising, it works. Okay, ready? So here's how anybody can have a Scottish accent if you want to talk about the Spice Girls, right?
Okay.
So remember the Spice Girls musical group, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, of course, we have this thing called outer space. So the first word is just the single word base, right? Now you're going to take that word and you're going to follow it with it's not an American word, English word, whatever. Theo, who cares where the word comes from? It's plural for where groups of people typically live. And traditionally, those places are understood to be underprivileged, and it starts with a G.
Ghettos?
Exactly. So, first word, space, and second word, plural. And just say it a couple of times.
Space ghettos. Is that right?
Say it again.
Space ghettos.
Yes, the musical group.
Weird.
I know, right? It sounds so Scottish. That was a long way to get there. I should have just said space ghettos.
Space ghettos.
Space ghettos. Okay, and then it also occurred to me that the most unfortunate name in history came from our Salem witch trial episode, and I didn't use it.
What?
It is Dorcas Whore.
I don't get it.
It's a real name. It's a lady's name. She was accused of being a witch.
Her real name? Her last name is Whore?
H-O-A-R, Whore.
Oh, wow.
And her first name is Dorcas.
Dorcas.
I don't know.
I knew someone named Dorcas in high school.
Oh, God, that's sad. So, of course, there's the word dork, right?
Yeah.
And I used to call my friend Jody Dorcas a lot because I just thought it was the female version of dork, right? So,
oh, my God.
It's bad. It's really bad.
You're so mean to your friends.
I know. It's so funny.
You're the worst.
Let's see here. There's a new podcast. It's called, it's not new. Slow Burn's been around for a while, but their new episode is out. Or new season is out. I do a podcast. You think I would know the vocabulary, right? And this they're doing Rodney King and the LA riots. And the guy who originally filmed, of course, this was back in the 90s when we didn't have phone cameras. So the fact that he had a video camera, that's the word I'm looking for. I was trying to say VCR. Yeah. The fact that he had a video camera is huge, right? Are you a director? Wow.
They're expensive.
And so he filmed the Rodney King beating, right? And without that film, the cops' version of the story was just, the cops looked good and Rodney King was bad and deserved the beating that he got. He put up a fight, which isn't what happened at all, right? He just lay there and passively, without any resistance, was beaten by several cops for a very long time. And so George Holliday, from his apartment balcony, captured this on film and released it. And whatever, like, I'm not going to tell the story of the podcast, but that's the podcast, right? It goes into all of the detail. It's so good.
I'll have to listen to that. What's it called again?
It's called Slow Burn. And episode 1 was just released. I love a lot of Slow Burn seasons. And so actually they did Monica Lewinsky, I think, for season 1. Oh, might have been season 2. So they're really good, Monica. Right? Unfortunately, George Holliday passed away in September of this year from COVID. He was 61 years old. Yeah. Very, very sad. And then as a transition, this is sort of a news update because, like, my week was really boring. You'll remember that our friend Rob Bigelow, who owned Skinwalker Ranch, still one of our more popular episodes, moved on to the Institute for Consciousness to study, like, is there life after death? What happens when people die? What's going on?
After his son died. Yeah.
After his son died. And he shifted his interest from flying saucers to
consciousness after
death, his survival after death. And November 1st was hey, everybody, we've got our findings. Well, that's not what was going on at all.
What?
What happened was, I thought it was proof of life after death, but it's more like essays about studies on life after death, right? So November 1st, they released their winners. They had several dozen winners, and these winners' essays will be combined into a book that will be shared for free, apparently.
Nice.
And cool. And so the book's not out yet. So I'm like, well, I kind of want to know.
Nice follow-up. Yeah, totally. It's time.
Yeah, that came to me when I was at a stoplight. Like, I should find out what's going on with that. So, that's been my week. And that brings you your evening news. What about you? What's shaking bacon?
Thank you. What's shaking bacon? I took my car in to be serviced. That's super exciting.
Fascinating.
I know, and it's all included in the purchase price of the car, so I didn't have to pay a penny, which is beautiful. And it's the first time I've been downtown. It's for some reason there are a lot of car service places in the Tenderloin, which is near downtown, very close to Union Square, which strikes me as odd. I mean, I would think in 2021 all that real estate would be used for other things, but I guess not. And there's still car places down there. But yeah, it's the first time I've been downtown in like 2 years since COVID started. So it's all very much the same as it always has been. So that's an exciting report. What else? I got some really cool new slippers.
Oh my God. Well, fashion.
It's been an exciting week, yes. They're very plush and fluffy. And there was one more thing I was going to tell you about, and I've completely forgotten what it was.
Podcast.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So I've been listening to The Dropout, which is the podcast about Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes. And right now, for some reason, Apple Podcasts, which sucks major dick right now after the update, was not downloading the new episodes for me. So I only had the October 19th episode to listen to, and I'm stuck back there because that's the last one I've had a chance to listen to. And it's about how some of the jurors are trying to get off because they feel guilty for sentencing Elizabeth Holmes. They would feel guilty for sentencing Elizabeth Holmes to many years in prison, which is kind of funny. I mean, didn't you know that was a possibility when you joined the jury? But it's also interesting that it seems to be going that way, that they seem to think she's guilty. And to me, with my work in the pharmaceutical field, although I'm not a lab manager or a scientist or anything like that, it just seems to me ridiculous on the face of it that people would believe that what they said, Theranos said they could do, was even possible. Like they were going to take one drop of blood and do all kinds of tests on it and get results for all kinds of diseases. And you need vials of blood to do that now. And I can't think of any way how you could go from vials of blood to just one drop without intermediate steps. So it's disappointing, but it's typical of Silicon Valley that somebody would come along with some great new disruptive idea and people would throw money at it. So I'm very interested to see how the trial sorts itself out and to hear the remaining episodes of the podcast that I haven't had a chance to hear yet.
Oh, it's so good. I listened to it and really enjoyed it. Didn't know a lot about Elizabeth Theranos, or it's not even her last
Elizabeth
name.
Holmes.
Thank you so much. Yes, yeah. Theranos. But just the name of the company, Theranos, it sounds ominous. Come on. Mm-hmm. It's like Greek for death or I don't know, something. It doesn't sound good.
It seems like it. No, it sounds really bad. And, you're going to invest in something called Theranos. It seems like you're getting what you asked for. But
yeah, right. And I get her position, which was this has to be possible. And with enough money, we can figure anything out. But they did... I don't know that anybody died from a lack of care based on Theranos results, but they for sure lied to sick people.
Oh yeah, they took money from investors, which is one thing. I mean, I guess I can't feel too bad about that. But yeah, go ahead and do that.
Get all the money you want.
But yeah, if you're giving hope to sick people that you're whatever, I don't need to go there. We all know how we feel.
Yes, it is. It's bad. Bad.
It's bad.
Bad. Okay, Elizabeth. Well, speaking of bad, let's talk about people who wear other gender clothing. That's bad? Bumpy transition. No,
You're getting in trouble already, and we just started.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking about Billy Porter today. And you may know Billy Porter for his awards show outfits, as Theo was alluding to. But he has been around. He is a Tony, Grammy, and Emmy award winner and was the first openly gay black man to be nominated for and win in any leading acting category at the Primetime Emmys. So he started out as a theatrical singer and a mainstream pop vocalist, and he was on Star Search in 1992, where he won $100,000 on the same show as Britney Spears. Did you happen to see that show, Theo?
I'm familiar. I never saw that episode, but I am familiar with Star Search.
Yeah, so people go on trying to become famous for whatever it is they do, singing, dancing, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of America's Got money. Talent, just under a different title.
The original, the OG America's Got Talent. And I didn't watch the Britney Spears section, but I did watch the Billy Porter section. And it's interesting to note, like for the purposes of our conversation today, that he was conventionally dressed as a man in this appearance, but his singing was outstanding. He has had roles in multiple Broadway and off-Broadway shows. I think the first one that I encountered was Teen Angel in the 94 Broadway revival of Grease, and many other shows, including a one-person autobiographical show called Ghetto Superstar, The Man That I Am, which was off-Broadway in 2005. And I would have liked to have seen that. I bet it was interesting. He then originated the role of Lola in Kinky Boots on Broadway in 2013, which is a Harvey Weinstein written musical, and Cyndi Lauper wrote the music. Did you see Kinky Boots?
I've seen the movie version of it. I didn't know that Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, well, listen to both discovering things. I didn't know that Cyndi Lauper wrote the music for it. Good
you
for
didn't
her.
Know that?
No.
Oh my God, that's like the only thing I know about it.
But
yeah,
and I mean, I love Cyndi Lauper, but I like her music. Right.
I didn't know it was Harvey Weinstein, however the hell he pronounces his name. Isn't he canceled? Didn't we cancel him? Yeah,
he's been canceled. Yeah, he's canceled. And I don't know if he's still in jail. He's probably not in jail, but he's facing jail time. He didn't start the Me Too movement, but like he was the first person
he's the
who.
Dude that was.
Yeah. He's
was
bad.
Condemned.
Bad. And he wore male's clothing. Hi, English.
Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah. So I was trying to make a dumb joke. It didn't work. Or it did work. It was a dumb joke.
Yeah, that's fine. You saw the movie Kinky Boots. Was it worth seeing? Should I see it? All right. Good to know. Was Billy Porter in it?
I don't remember.
I don't think so, because I think I would have run into that if he had been in the movie, but I'll check it out. But anyway, he did win a Tony for Best Actor in a Musical for his role of Lola in Kinky Boots. He's also released 3 solo albums, which are sort of Broadway tunes, or I guess are Broadway tunes. He wrote a play. He reprised the role of Lola in 2017 on Broadway, and then he started his run on the shows Pose and American Horror Story in 2018, which was only 3 years ago. He's been in a Taylor Swift video, which I watched and which was fun, and performed at the 2020 Democratic National Convention with Stephen Stills, and released a memoir in 2021. He opened up about his HIV positive status in May 21, and there is a Netflix documentary about his life, which I believe is still in the works. It may be finished now, but I have not seen it. So
I got so excited. Okay, it's not out yet.
It's not out yet. Okay. I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be great. So he's perhaps best known, however, for his style. He attributes his love of fashion from an early age to growing up in the black church, which he describes as a fashion show. His style's gone through many phases over the years, including vintage, Abercrombie & Fitch, and geek chic. And he said that he intentionally set out to use fashion in a political way, to be a walking piece of political art. He's designed many of his outfits and red carpet looks himself, along with his stylist, Sam Rattel. I believe he has a new stylist now, though. I don't have his name. But I think Sam Rattel was his stylist for many years, up until 2020 or 2021. In the 2019 Golden Globes, he wore an embroidered suit and pink cape designed by Randy Rahm. And he said the fact that people were surprised that he wore a cape inspired him to ask Christian Siriano if he could create him a ball gown, because it was something he had always wanted to wear. And I had not realized that Christian Siriano designed that ball gown. I remember when Christian Siriano was on that show. What was that show?
It's called Don't Judge Me. No, that's not it. It's called America's Top Designer. That's not it. It's
something
Heidi,
like that.
Heidi's on it. I love Heidi.
Yeah, and that dude that I like.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't like his designs, but I know who you're talking about. It's MK, Mario something.
No, the white-haired dude.
Oh, Tim Gunn. Okay, the only name I know. It's called Project Design Project. It's called Project Runway.
Something
Jesus.
like that.
Oh my God.
Project Runway, that's it. Yes, I remember when he was on Project Runway. And
Me too.
I actually was watching reality shows at that point in my life, and now he's designing ball gowns for Billy Porter to wear on the red carpet, which is fucking amazing. And I know Christian Siriano also designs clothes for larger women, which is fucking awesome. So that's like one of his things.
Now not a designer, he's a judge on Project Runway.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Project Runway is still around?
Project Runway is still around. I'm sure it's a reboot because they closed it and retired it.
Oh, I see.
Tim and Heidi started their own alternate version of Project Runway, and I can't remember the name of that, and it's on a different channel. I don't know. And then I kind of just stopped watching.
Okay. That's cool. Well, I'm glad it's still going on because it was kind of fun. Although it seemed like they put those people through a lot, but I guess that's the whole point of reality shows. So Christian Siriano designed the ball gown, and Porter said that it seemed like a way to challenge people's idea of masculinity, which he sort of got interested in when he did the Lola role in Kinky Boots. So he was interested in challenging toxic masculinity. He wore that outfit from Christian Siriano at the 91st Academy Awards, and it was caused quite the stir. But then he attended the Met Gala, I think in 2019, and the theme was Camp, Notes on Fashion. And he arrived being carried on a litter by 6 shirtless men wearing a sun god ensemble. And his outfit had a bejeweled catsuit outfitted with 10-foot wings, a 20-foot karat gold headpiece, custom gold leaf Giuseppe Zanotti shoes, and jewels by Andreoli, John Hardy, and Oscar Heyman. And do you remember that outfit? That was something.
I never saw that.
The fact that he was carried in by 6 shirtless men was just fucking amazing. I think that was brilliant and just beautiful. And his outfit was amazing. It was just gorgeous. He didn't leave it there, though. In 2020, he wore a floor-length pink poncho-style gown with a wide-brimmed black hat, a look he called Handmaid's Tale realness. He wore that to the AFI Awards, and to the Golden Globes, he wore an all-white outfit, including a tuxedo jacket with a feathered train. He wore a sparkling turquoise bodysuit with a matching bolero and a motorized hat to the Grammy Awards. Now, I'm sure you've seen that motorized hat.
I have not.
You haven't?
I have not.
It's so
no.
fun. You have to Google it. I mean, I won't make you Google it right now, but you have to Google it. It's just the funnest thing, and it became a meme for a bunch of. Yeah, I hear you Googling it now. Look up turquoise motorized hat Billy Porter. It's just the coolest thing I've ever seen, and. So he became famous for his outfits, many of which he designed on his own, and all this made it even more annoying for Billy Porter when this time last year Vogue put Harry Styles on the cover in a dress, and Harry Styles looked uncomfortable and boring. Harry Styles has avoided stating his sexual orientation, by the way. Billy Porter responded to this with, "I created the conversation, and yet Vogue still puts Harry Styles, a straight white man in a dress, on their cover for the first time. I'm not dragging Harry Styles, but he is the one you're going to try and use to represent this new conversation. He doesn't care. He's just doing it because it's the thing to do." Have you found the hat?
I did, yeah, and it is amazing, and I have no doubt that anything that Billy Porter wears on the red carpet is going to be amazing.
Stunning.
Yeah, and it walks a very great line between camp and high fashion. It manages to do both extremely well. And so hats off to him. Thank you. Thank you.
So let's talk about the apology now. There is an apology in here. Billy Porter apologized to Harry Styles, and in his apology he said, "The first thing I want to say is, Harry Styles, I apologize to you for having your name in my mouth. It's not about you. The conversation is not about you." And he said that on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert this past Thursday. In another interview with the UK Sunday Times, he said, "I created the conversation, and yet Vogue still put Harry Styles, a straight white man, in a dress on their cover for the first time. I changed the whole game, and that is not ego, that is just fact. I was the first one doing it, and now everybody is doing it. I'm not dragging Harry Styles, but he doesn't care. He's just doing it because it's the thing to do. This is politics for me. This is my life. I had to fight my entire life to get to the place where I could wear a dress to the Oscars and not be gunned down. All he has to do is be white and straight. It is about the systems of oppression and erasure of people of color who contribute to the culture," Porty said. Now that's a lot to unpack. I'm willing to unpack it sans the dragging and cancel culture of the internet, because I do not now, nor will I ever, adjudicate my life or humanity in sound bites on social media. So when you're ready to have the real conversation, call a bitch. I'm sorry, Harry. I didn't mean no harm," he reiterated. "I'm a gay man. We like Harry. He's cute."
Aw, that, not to tip my hand right now, but I'll say that's very honest. It's a real, it manages to apologize to Harry Styles for Billy Porter's personal reaction and his anger, right? But his anger isn't based at Harry Styles as a person. It's again, it's anger generated by a system.
True.
And he's 1,000% right. Black queer people make culture, change culture, and get erased from culture.
Absolutely true. No question. I'm not going to argue with that, but I am going to argue with him saying that he is the first one to do it. So what I say is, okay, Billy Porter, you've established yourself as a legitimate icon, but you are not the first.
No.
So the first person, I'm going to tell you who the first was.
Oh!
The first person known to describe himself as the Queen of Drag in America was William Dorsey Swann, who was born a slave in Maryland, who in the 1880s started hosting drag balls in Washington, D.C., attended by other men who were formerly enslaved, parties which were often raided by the police. He was actually convicted and sentenced to 10 months in jail in 1896 on the false charge of keeping a disorderly house, which is a euphemism for running a brothel. And he actually requested a pardon from President Grover Cleveland for holding a drag ball, which was denied. So back, I know, right? No surprise. So even back in 1896, there were people doing drag. Around this time, the minstrel shows, which are known for blackface, included not only the mocking of African American men, but also African American women. And vaudeville, which was a little bit after the minstrel shows in the late 1800s to the early 1900s, had prima donnas who were inspired by European cross-dressing shows. Vaudeville expanded the audience from minstrelsy due to the shifting demographics of the time in the U.S. Some vaudeville stars made it to Broadway impersonating women. One famous one, Julian Elting, published a magazine which provided beauty and fashion tips and posed himself for corset and cosmetics advertisements. A person named Bothwell Brown on the West Coast ended up in films. But by the early to mid-1900s, female impersonation had become tied to the LGBT community and thus criminality, because that was illegal at the time. So it had to change forms and locations. It moved from being popular mainstream entertainment to something done only at night in disreputable areas, such as the Tenderloin in San Francisco, which I mentioned getting my car fixed at today. So it all ties together, people. Drag queens such as Jose Soria and Alicia Brevard first came to prominence in these clubs, such as the Tenderloin clubs. People went to these nightclubs to play with the boundaries of gender and sexuality, and it became a place for the LGBT community, especially gay men, to feel accepted. We have, in 1933, the movie Victor and Victoria coming out, which is a German film about drag queens working in musical entertainment. In the 1940s and 50s, Arthur Blake was one of the few female impersonators to be successful in both gay and mainstream entertainment, becoming famous for his impersonations of Betty Davis, Carmen Miranda, and Eleanor Roosevelt in nightclubs. At the invitation of the Roosevelts, he performed his impersonation of Eleanor at the White House. Can you imagine?
No, I can't. That's so progressive.
Unbelievable. Ed Wood's movie Glen or Glenda came out in 1953, and Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby performed in drag in White Christmas in 1954. I guess I've never seen White Christmas because I don't remember there being any drag in that movie, but I guess it's time to watch it again.
I think, remember that. I haven't seen it in years and years. But there was a whole thing in the 50s, even into the 60s, of comedies where men had to dress up like women in order to like escape something, right? Hide from the police, or they were falsely accused or whatever.
I think that's different than drag queens.
Oh, for sure.
So I think men dressing up as women is a little bit different than what Billy Porter. It's very different. I mean, that kind of men dressing up as women is very different from what Billy Porter is doing. But there are and there were drag queens, much way before Billy Porter, and there were even. Go ahead. Right.
Oh, no. And so what I was going to say was we start to get into really murky territory here because there are people who identify as cross-dressers, and then there are people who identify as drag queens, and then there are people who perform as drag queens, right?
Right.
And so I think Billy Porter would say, and I'm not, I can't speak for Billy Porter, if only, but I think he would say that he's not a drag queen.
Right, I think you're right. He's a man dressing.
However,
dress.
Would a drag queen love some of those outfits? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they would.
So there were even two actual riots in support of LGBT people in the 50s and 60s. One of the first LGBT protests in the U.S. was the Cooper Donuts riot, which was a May 1959 riot in L.A. and responsible to police harassment of LGBT people at the Cooper's Donuts shop, which was a cafe on Main Street.
I've never heard this.
This was a cafe on Main Street in downtown Los Angeles between two gay bars, Harold's and the Waldorf, and it was a popular hangout for gay people. At the time, LA law made it illegal for a person's gender presentation not to match the gender shown on their ID, and this was often used to target and arrest transgender patrons. For this reason, many gay bars were hostile to transgender patrons and banned or discouraged them from entering. But Cooper Donuts was welcoming to the gay community, and this made it a target for police harassment. They attempted to arrest two drag queens, two male sex workers, and a gay man in May 1959. One person arrested started throwing coffee, donuts, cups, and trash at the police until they fled in their car without making the arrest. Then people started rioting in the streets. Police backup arrived, arrested several people. And the Cooper Donuts uprising is often believed to be the first gay uprising in the U.S., and this was 10 years before Stonewall in New York City.
Which just goes to show that everything starts in L.A.
That's
You're
right.
welcome, America.
LA and San Francisco, the Compton's cafeteria riot involved drag queens and occurred in the Tenderloin of San Francisco in 1960. 1966. I've got the hiccups. This riot was a response to the violent and constant police harassment of drag queens and trans people, particularly trans women. It marked the beginning of transgender activism in San Francisco. Felicia Flames Elizondo, a participant in the riot, recalled in 2015 that a lot of people thought we were sick, mental trash. Nobody cared whether we lived or died. Our own families abandoned us and we had nowhere to go. One of the trans women in the documentary, Screaming Queens, noted that a trans woman could get arrested for having the buttons on the wrong side, that is, the left side of the shirt, where buttons tend to be placed on women's clothing. Because cross-dressing was illegal at the time, police could use the presence of transgender people in a bar as a pretext for making a raid and closing the establishment. In the aftermath of the riot at Compton's, a network of transgender psychological, and medical support services was established, which culminated in 1968 with the creation of the National Transsexual Counseling Unit, the first such pure-run support and advocacy organization in the world. The Compton's cafeteria riot did not solve the problems that transgender people in the Tenderloin face daily, but prompted the city to begin addressing them as citizens rather than as a problem to be removed. Police brutality towards them decreased over time, and they had less fear of being heckled by the police department for dressing how they chose during the daytime. And in 2017, the city of San Francisco recognized the Compton's Transgender Cultural District, which is the world's first legally recognized transgender district. And now they've taken the name Compton's off of it because the Compton cafeteria people were actually not friendly to LGBT transgender people, but were the ones calling the police.
What?
So
somebody wasn't friendly to transgender people?
Hard to believe, right?
Hard to believe.
Drag queens were also involved in the Stonewall riots, a series of spontaneous violent demonstrations by members of the LGBT community against a police raid that took place in the early morning hours of 28th June 1969 at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village. These riots are widely considered to be the catalyst for the gay liberation movement and the modern fight for LGBT rights in the United States. So that's it for riots, but we're continuing with the drag queen / men dressing as women history theme. We've got the Pink Flamingos came out in 1972 with Divine.
Best Tim movie Curry. Of all time.
I haven't seen it in 100 years.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank God.
No, I have seen it.
That's a good save. Wow. You better...
I feel like I saw it in like 1983 or 1982.
I almost jumped right through this microphone with the DVD in my hand because I would make you watch it.
I'll watch it again today just for you.
Well, you would have to get stoned because that's the best way. I can't get
stoned.
I know.
It's not physically possible.
You're not that kind of girl.
It doesn't work for me. I would love to be able to get stoned. I wish I could get stoned. But anyway, not that I've ever tried, coworkers and bosses. Tim Curry cross-dressed in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. What?
Yeah, you're right. You're employed.
I have a job. In 1975, Tim Curry cross-dressed in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and La Cage aux Folles was released as an adaptation of the play in 1978. In 1990, Paris is Burning, a documentary film directed by Jenny Livingston, chronicled the ball culture of New York City and the gay and transgender community involved in it. Did you see Paris is Burning?
Oh, of course. My God. Yeah,
it's
multiple times.
Awesome.
It
so
is
fun.
My favorite documentary.
It's a good documentary. And it centers around African American and Latino drag culture surrounding communities such as Harlem in the 80s. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert came out in 1994. I barely want to mention this, but To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar came out in 1995. Wigstock, the movie, came out also in 1995. And Hedwig and the Angry Inch premiered in 2001. What do you think about Hedwig and the Angry Inch? Did you see it?
I did see it. I don't remember very much about it. Was Tim Curry in it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I think I saw it because of Tim Curry, but I didn't think much about it, and nah.
Okay. I haven't read a lot. I remember when it came out, I watched it with Brent when it came out, and we thought it was pretty good. But I can see, looking back on it, how there would be things that would distress people, and I would like to hear some
people who were distressed.
I would like to hear some people who are...
Please tell us.
I'd like to hear some criticism of it, so I'm going to go back on the internet and look for some. This was all before Billy Porter, though. All this stuff happened before he really became famous. And I can't not mention RuPaul's Drag Race, which started in 2008, in which RuPaul and a panel of judges selected America's Next Drag Superstar. The show won multiple Primetime Emmys, and RuPaul has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it may still be going on for all I know. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it's still going on. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just going to say, yeah, it's still going on.
If not, there's probably some knockoffs or,
Yeah,
some spin-offs of it that are happening.
For sure.
Because it was so popular.
Oh, there's no way to ever know, though. So
there's no way to ever know. Oh, well, we'll move on. And then there was the comedian Eddie Izzard, who initially presented as a transvestite, which is not the same as a drag queen, but definitely a famous man wearing a dress, at least contemporaneously with Billy Porter. And I think you can say that you're almost mainstream when in December 2015, the San Francisco Public Library comes out with Drag Queen Story Hour, which was then adopted by the Brooklyn Public Library in 2016 and has since traveled to various libraries, museums, bookstores, recreation centers, and parks across the U.S., Canada, and the United Kingdom.
And I love that idea.
And you can watch Drag Queen Story Hour on Zoom anytime you like. If you just look up, I forget her name. I'm sorry, Michelle T is one of them. But you can totally do it in your spare time. It's on YouTube now.
That makes me so happy. I am going to totally do that.
Absolutely. It looked like fun when I was looking at it this morning. So even though he's far from the first, according to NPR, and I think this is the crux of the matter, Porter is fair to critique Styles' positionality as a straight passing white man who hasn't publicly lived through the isolation and shame of the AIDS crisis or faced career threats like Porter's lived experiences as a black gay man in the acting industry. Styles, with his largely apolitical stance, presents a more palatable symbol of rejecting gender conformity for Vogue than other more vocal, politically invested, openly LGBT individuals. That speaks to his privilege, as Porter points out, Styles hasn't had to substantially risk anything in pursuing his artistic self-expression compared to LGBT artists of color. In fact, he's celebrated for it. There are harsher realities for LGBTQ individuals like Porter, where dressing outside the strict confines of the gender binary was risking loss of livelihood or even death.
Yeah, that's the
end.
The hard part of it. This is our lighter episode, so I will acknowledge that we're looking at this topic from a place of love, and it sounds so gross. Place of love. I hate saying that, but it's true in a way. But we are not looking at the numbers of people who are killed for wearing clothing of opposite genders, and there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and I think Billy Porter is right in saying that Harry Styles was not the right person to be on the cover of Vogue. I think he's wrong in saying that he is the first one to ever do this, though.
Oh yeah, totally agreed. I mean, when I read what Porter said, I was like, I love you. You're cool. But no, but. If you want to say like you're the first person on the red carpet that day to do that, yeah, totally. Right. And I always make myself the first and most important person in the room, always. The only person here with brown hair.
Well, you are.
Right. So, yeah. So I get it, but also agreed. It's not something, Harry Styles, I don't know why he did it. Why he wore a dress, right?
Well, wouldn't you be on the cover of Vogue, and wouldn't you wear a dress if they asked you to? I mean, hell yeah.
For sure. My God, yeah. If you get Annie Leibovitz into a room and point a camera at me and ask me to do anything, I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah. And I did not look into why did Harry Styles do this? Or, is gender fluidity kind of his thing? Because I've never really heard a complaint about Harry Styles. And for me, Billy Porter and gender norms and gender queerness were more interesting to me than Harry Styles, who's a pop star, and I'm sure is on the right side of everything.
Naturally.
Right?
He must be.
Yeah, of course he is.
He'll probably be apologizing to Billy Porter soon.
Well, or graciously accepting the apology and sending over an amazing tuxedo dress.
Oh,
a second
sweet.
one. That tuxedo dress was fucking amazing.
It was beautiful.
Christian
it's
Siriano,
like the most beautiful article of clothing I've ever seen.
I am here. You may dress me. We're ready. Right?
We are. For real.
Get that I was going to say get that pen out, but that's a needle. And yeah, I don't know anything about clothing or fashion.
So let's rate the apology.
Oh,
I unless you have more to say.
I do.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. I have a little bit about Billy Porter, and then I've got some stuff around gender. So we could do the Billy Porter stuff, rate the apology, and then move on to like clothing and gender.
Whatever floats your boat.
So, all right, cool. Okay, so Billy Porter, what was interesting for me was that he had recently written and published a memoir. It had 78 positive reviews. 77 of them were basically 5-star reviews, and one of them was a 1-star review from a guy who likes to complain a lot on the internet. So I always look at people that give negative reviews and like, is this the only one you've ever given? Oh no, this is what you do. Okay. And I don't care about the negative review from that guy, but glowing reviews. And then this is from the book jacket, from the incomparable Emmy, Grammy, and Tony Award winner, a powerful and revealing autobiography about race, sexuality, art, and healing. Billy Porter's Unprotected is the life story of a singular artist and survivor in his own words. It is a story of a boy whose talent and courage opened doors for him, but only a crack. It is a story of a teenager discovering himself, learning his voice and his craft amidst deep trauma. And is a story of a young man whose unbreakable determination led him through countless hard times to where he is now. A proud icon who refuses to back down or hide. Porter is a multi-talented, multifaceted treasure at the top of his game, and Unprotected is a resonant, inspirational story of trauma and healing shot through with a singular voice. And I'm going to say, you know that Billy Porter wrote that. I am multi-talented, multifaceted. I'm a treasure at the top of my game. That's high praise, everybody. High praise.
That is indeed
However,
the highest.
I will say that made me want to like peek into the book and find out a little bit about like, okay, who's Billy Porter? What's up? And so to your earlier point about clothing, he says, though I could not have articulated it back then, not even to myself, my fixation on fashion went deeper than mere aesthetics. I sensed that clothing was a potent signifier that its import went beyond its visual appeal. And then he talks about how black female churchgoers would dress and that many of them were employed during the week as domestic servants or security guards or custodians and were required to wear uniforms meant to reinforce their status as lesser than. To dress impeccably and regally on the Lord's Day, then, was to insist on their own dignity and worth in a world that sought to systematically strip them of both. It's a way to assert that they were God's children too, and in his house, they would adorn themselves in a manner befitting the glory of the Lord. So when Billy Porter was a little boy, he was very effeminate, and his parents were worried that he was too effeminate, and he was caught wearing girls' clothing. He was caught wearing his aunt's red high heel shoes. And
they sent him to therapy at like 5 years old.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that he was that young, but I knew that they had sent him to therapy when he was young. And the therapist said, hey, listen, he's very effeminate, but he's in a house filled with women. He needs a man. So his mother eventually got remarried. I don't know that she got remarried in order to provide him with a male figure in the house, right? But she got remarried. And then, unfortunately, his stepfather sexually abused him. Right? So his mother, with all good intentions, would send the stepfather into Billy's bedroom at night to quiet him if he had a bad dream or make sure he was sleeping. And that's when the molestation would occur. And
it breaks your heart.
Oh, it's awful. And so Porter understood this through a lens of he was having an affair with his stepfather because he was gay as a child. And it wasn't until much later in therapy that he recognized it as, that he understood it was abuse, right?
Yeah.
And then for his mother, he was very, very effeminate, super, let's just say flaming gay kid, right? And gosh, this is getting sad. So no, it is sad though, right? Because
it has a happy ending.
Poor guy. It has an amazing ending, right? But so how do we get to that amazing ending? So he was ostracized for his feminine behavior as a kid, right? And his family was Pentecostal, super religious, very uptight religious, not happy religious, very religious. No. Sorry to any Pentecostal listeners, but yeah, it can.
We don't have any Pentecostal listeners.
We might, but who knows,
I don't think
right?
so.
Well, maybe for sure we're not going to be on Christian radio. Yes, no. But okay. So anyway, so his mom loved him regardless, and here's why. Aside from the fact that she gave birth to her child and probably was a decent, loving person, right?
Yeah.
My mother was visibly different as a child with a compromised gait and bodily tremors. She once had much more mobility than she does now. Learning to walk she's in an assisted care facility now. Learning to walk was harder for her than most children, but she managed it. She could hardly hold a pen and her handwriting looked like chicken scratch, but there was nothing wrong with her mind. Unfortunately, in the 1940s, educators were less discerning than they are now, and all disabled children tended to be treated the same way as outcasts and freaks, regulated to windowless basement classrooms out of sight of mainstream society. My mother was no exception. Through her elementary school years, she was grouped and shamed with children who had severe cognitive impairments. I'm not stupid, just handicapped, was her plaintive refrain, and it remains so even now. So she grew up identified as different. Not that she self-identified as different, but everybody treated her as an outsider. So when she gave birth to a child who was treated as an outsider, she knew what that felt like. And then as to how the stepfather comes into their life, we'll say from his book, the world had given up on her before she even began. Salvation seemed to materialize in the form of William Ellis Porter. He was a handsome, dark chocolate babe with almond eyes and a sparkling personality. He was gregarious and sociable, an extrovert, a church boy with a job who checked all the necessary boxes. Most importantly, when he met my mother, he seemed to see past her disability. He was the first man who showed her any romantic interest, and everybody on the planet simply just wants to be seen. My mother was smitten, and the rest is history. Later, she would learn that he had married her on a wager. That is, he had bet his best friend that he could seduce the church cripple. My mother was an easy mark, lonely, naive, a prisoner in her own home who would have done almost anything to get out. It's harder to fathom her fiancé's motives. Oh, I'm sorry, and I said stepfather. That was his biological father, who eventually disappears.
I see. Wow.
Yeah, and so his mother is one of his heroes, always treated him with kindness and respect, and that's because of her own impairment. She had a complicated birth, and they gave her mother some sort of they delivered her as if she was premature, but she wasn't premature, and so there's special like medication and anesthesia that's given for premature births, and it wasn't required. However, she was a black child being born, and as we know, black women don't receive the same health care that white women do in this country. So it's, I'm sure, an amazing read, and
it sounds it. I'm already fascinated.
I know, right? Like, where do you go from there except to then rate his apology and then move on to other things? But I don't know. I mean, maybe does any of that potentially change your rating? Because I could say straight from the start that I would give this an 8. It's high marks for me.
Well, excuse me. I was going to give it a 4, but then I went back and I looked. I went back and I looked at our criteria, and the criteria are: was there an expression of regret? And yes, there is. Was there an explanation of what went wrong? Yeah. Was there an acknowledgement of responsibility? Yes. Was there a declaration of repentance? Yes. He said sorry. Was there an offer of repair? Well, no. I don't know how you would repair that, but there was no offer of repair, and there was not really a request for forgiveness. Kind of a request for forgiveness. So I upped my 4 to a 6.
Okay,
so
cool.
I think it's much better.
So we're both on the positive side of the 5. So it's better than a middling apology.
Yeah, we've had a lot worse apologies on this podcast.
Hell, that's why we have a podcast.
Yeah, so I give it a 6, you give it an 8, that's a 7.
14 divided by 2 is 7, yes. And if there's a different way to get to that number, I don't want to know about it. And so within this topic of Billy Porter, right? I mean, there's a lot here that's easy to trip over. We didn't intentionally avoid it, but somehow we didn't really trip. We tripped over it a little bit with drag queens and identity, right? Like, is Billy Porter a drag? Does he identify as a drag queen? Is he gender fluid? Is he gender queer? And I think gender queer is just kind of the easiest way to say for anybody.
He says he's gay.
Well, right. So somebody who's gay, you could say, well, they're gender queer because, you know.
Oh, sure. If you're not straight.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Right.
Men like women. If you're a man who likes a man, then boom, you're genderqueer, right? So that feels like a safe way. It feels like a grocery store. It feels like a good umbrella term to use for this discussion. And then
wait a minute.
Yeah.
So wouldn't genderqueer be somebody who is that a gender identity thing rather than a gender preference thing?
So great question, but you could argue that gender identity would be expectations around behavior based on your biology, and the expectation from 90, maybe even 95% of society is that if you have a vagina, you like a man. Right.
But what I'm saying is, if you're genderqueer, does that mean you don't assign it? You don't identify as cis?
I see what you're saying. Right.
Rather than gay or straight.
I don't know where academics stand on that officially yet.
No way to find out. Let me look and see.
There's no way to find out. We'd have to call a professor and ask them. But for me, saying
I'll call the library.
Okay, great. Mail them a letter.
Okay, it says the term genderqueer means someone who does not follow binary gender norms. They may be non-binary, agender, pangender, gender fluid, or another gender identity.
Okay, right. And so gender norms would be who you're sexually attracted to. But, right, so it starts to get into like all these, well, it doesn't start to get into, there are all these fine lines, right? Like a transvestite versus a drag queen, right? And I'm going to shut up there because it just starts to get into places where it's like, I don't have any authority to say, this is what that is, right? I'm here to learn. So within that, yeah, you're right. I probably shouldn't use the term genderqueer to talk about people's sexual preferences. I wouldn't identify as genderqueer, but if somebody said I was genderqueer, I'd be like, all right, I'm not going to fight you. Okay, so queer Black people have been changing culture forever. Paris is Burning, as you mentioned, the documentary, amazing and wonderful. And within that film, we had sort of mainstream society's entree into the world of houses and how Black genderqueer, well, I did it again, right? But queer, we'll just use queer, right?
Yeah.
Black queer people who were thrown out by their own families, gather together and find safety and familial connection and friendship living together, and they will commonly adopt the same last name. As we saw in our Move and Philadelphia bombing, we had the
Africa family.
The Africa family. Same thing, which I'm going to guess started long before John Africa founded the Africa family. So anyway, all right. So Paris is Burning is there. We have the film Tangerine. Have you ever seen? And yes, you have. Have you seen Tangerine?
I think so, but I don't recall.
Thank God. Okay. It's about two transgendered sex workers and their day across LA tracking down the boyfriend of one of them who's been cheating.
I think so.
Okay, it's amazing. And that film broke a lot of boundaries. It was the first film filmed with an iPhone 5 entirely.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, 5S. Wow.
Wow.
And it's the first film that actively campaigned for openly transgender actresses for the Academy Awards.
Cool.
So very cool, right? And so this whole topic of like a guy wearing women's clothing sparked something in the back of my mind where it's like, didn't boys used to wear girls' dresses when they, and yes,
Right.
children were styled as girls, and I'll say styled versus raised, right? So boys would have longer hair, it would be curled, they would wear dresses. It's thought and believed that made changing diapers easier, right? And so from Vogue 1900, they outline the stages of dressing boy children very specifically. Long dresses until 6 months, then short dresses up until the age of 3, then either Russian blouses with knickers or kilt suits up until the age of 5 or 6. Harper's Bazaar
cute.
noted that boys were usually put into trousers as soon as they were too old for baby frocks. All right.
Whatever that means. Okay.
I don't know what that means either. But I guess it was understood universally in the 1900s because Vogue didn't see a reason to. Oh, and how interesting that it's Vogue. I just caught that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know. I did that on purpose. Nothing on the show is ever an accident. And then, of course, this idea of boys dressing as girls, right, which was fairly common up until about the World War II, I'm going to guess, right? There was also boys and girls colors, so blue for boys, pink for girls, sort of the thing we all grow up with, and that wasn't the case. A June 1918 article from a trade publication called Earnshaw's Infants Department said, the generally accepted rule is pink for the boys and blue for the girls. The reason is that pink, being a more decided and stronger color, is more suitable for the boy, while blue, which is more delicate and dainty, is prettier for the girl. And pink for boys and blue for girls remained the hard, fast rule until about the 1940s, and it switched simply based on consumer demand.
Oh,
People were
interesting.
buying pink for girls, and so retail was just like, okay, we give up. And then, of course, yeah, I mean, weird, right?
That is weird.
But interesting, too, because I grew up with blue for boys, right? So governments and cultures have long been trying to control the way that people dress. Sumptuary laws are laws that societies create that tell you like how you can dress for your social position, how you can dress if you're male, female, if you make this much money, that much money, the types of fabrics you can wear. Silk has been forbidden to men in many cultures for a long time, right? So the first written Greek law code dates from the 7th century BC, and this is great, and it stipulates that a freeborn woman may not be accompanied by more than one female slave unless she is drunk. She may not leave the city during the night unless she is planning to commit adultery. She may not, she may not wear gold jewelry or a garment with a purple border unless she is a courtesan. And a husband may not wear a gold-studded ring or a cloak of Milesian fashion unless he is bent upon prostitution or adultery. And so silk, fur, and the color purple have been denied to various groups of people throughout time by very many cultures. Cool, whatever, particularly prostitutes weren't allowed to wear fur. And my guess is to deny them warmth so that they wouldn't be outside prostituting themselves.
I don't know.
Can't help
It's too good for them. Fur is too good for them.
Fur is too good for them, maybe. And then to your point about, I don't remember what you called it, but about police arresting people for their clothing, right? So
Yeah.
there's something that was called the three-piece law, and academically it's kind of argued that, well, this law never existed and nobody in the periods called it the three-piece law. It was just sort of, in hindsight, that terminology was born, right?
Okay.
But whatever. So there were laws criminalizing cross-dressing across the United States in the 19th century. New York had one dating back to 1845, and it was declared a crime to have your face painted, discolored, covered, or concealed, or be otherwise disguised while in a road or public highway. Here's why. The state originally intended the law to punish rural farmers who had taken to dressing like Native Americans to fend off tax collectors. So they dressed up, we're going to dress up like a Native American. I don't owe you any money. I'm a Native American. Okay, goodbye. Have a nice day. Thanks. And then in Brooklyn in 1913, this is an actual case. A woman was dressed in men's clothing and she was arrested for drinking and smoking in a bar. Magistrate, she was dragged in front of, noted that this clothing law was really intended to be used for people who were dressing to disguise themselves in order to commit a crime. And since this woman had been dressed as a man, not to commit a crime, but she was just dressed as a man, now the law had been broken, right? Mm-hmm. So the police arrested her again 5 seconds later for associating with idle and vicious persons. And she was sentenced to 3 years in a reformatory.
Jesus.
And the judge noted, no girl would dress in men's clothing unless she is twisted in her moral viewpoint. This law was kind of loosely at the time called the masquerade law. And police used it to arrest transgender people and queer people who were dressed in air quotes around inappropriately, right? So the understood law was you had to have 3 articles that befit your biological gender, right? Oh. So if you were female, you need to have female underwear, a bra, and I don't know, a ribbon in your hair or something, right? And the cops would actually check. Wow. So you could wear men's shoes, but you better have on a skirt or whatever, right? Yeah. So the law itself, the masquerade law, remains on the books. In fact, police arrested somebody in 2011, and that somebody was a lot of somebodies. They were protesters in Occupy Wall Street movement, and they were arrested under that law for wearing masks in public. Huh. And this one I'm going to mark for like a future apology because I think it just feels like we have to do this one. So in June of 2019, the NYPD Police Commissioner James P. O'Neill offered an apology on behalf of the city's police force for their actions at the Stonewall Hotel, I think, but Stonewall Bar for sure. Thank you. About 50 years earlier, the actions taken by the NYPD were wrong, plain and simple. And I think, for sure, that's a future episode. And then just to tack on, because this, oh my God, I was like, here's a rabbit hole I could live in. I'm going to use the term cross-dressers, right? Mm-hmm. And by that, I just simply mean people of one gender who are wearing clothing typically ascribed to the opposite gender, right? Mm-hmm. So famous cross-dressers. The first one, Joan of Arc. I mean, of course, right? Oh, she dressed as a man. She went into battle, and many people will tell you that she was burned at the stake for witchcraft. That is not true. She was burned at the stake for repeated heresy, and that heresy was wearing men's clothing. Wow. Yeah. There's the case of Mary Read, who was a pirate from 1690. Well, she was born in 1690 to 1721. She wasn't a baby pirate, Theo. So she was raised by a boy. No, she was raised as a boy by her mother in England. She joined the military and she was captured by pirates. And she decided, oh, I'm going to be a pirate. And she became a pirate and she joined Anne Bonny's crew. There's a story that Bonny tried to seduce Anne and discovered that, oh, wow, you're a woman. And they became friends. They were both captured, and they are the only two women in history to be convicted of piracy.
Wow.
We have Queen Christina of Sweden, whom I've heard of, but I might have put down in like the queer category. But here's her story. So she lived from 1626 to 1689. Her dad gave her a masculine upbringing. He wanted her to be strong. She became queen at 18, but she abdicated 10 years later because her counselors wanted her to get married and have kids. She dressed as a man to get out of Sweden, and she became Catholic. She went to Rome, and the Pope gave her a special dispensation to continue wearing men's clothing. And she's currently, yeah, I know. The Pope's not all bad all the time. I mean, maybe that was for an evil reason. Who knows? I didn't look into why the Pope allowed that. And she's buried in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. She's only one of two women. We have Deborah Sampson, who born in 1760, died in 1827. She fought in the Revolutionary War. She was shot on a battlefield, and she was so afraid of being found out as a woman in men's clothing on a battlefield that she told her fellow soldiers to leave her there to die. They didn't listen to her, and they dragged her to a hospital. She escaped the hospital, and she removed a bullet from her own thigh.
Ugh.
Went back to fighting. In 1783, she was found out by doctors at another hospital. She received an honorary discharge from the military. She married and she had kids. And then she went on speaking tours dressed in her old uniform. It's thought that up to 400 women may have dressed as men to fight in the Civil War, a different war, right? She was fighting in the Revolutionary War. This next one really gave me pause. And I'm going to mispronounce the name, so I am sorry. My Mandarin is non-existent. There's a man named Shi Pei Pu, right? We're just going to call him Shi. Lived from 1938 to 2009. Wow. Well, I guess it's only 70 years.
I guess it's not that long. It seems like it.
I felt like so old because I see a 19 and then 2009. Wow.
Yeah.
But, hey, here I sit.
I guess my mom's older than that and she's still alive.
So that big wow was completely unnecessary. But it seemed like a miracle at the time. Like, did he write a history book? Okay. So he was a Chinese male opera singer. And he met a French embassy employee named Bernard Bursico. We're going to call him Bernard. And they met in Berlin. And she was 26 years old. And she convinced Bernard that he, the Chinese opera singer, was actually a woman masquerading as a man. So... yeah, his first name being Shi is going to get confusing. So we're going to call him Pei, right? So Shi Pei Pu. So Pei had an affair with Bernard for 20 years.
Wow. 20
years. Bernard, come on.
That's nuts.
That's crazy. So they had an affair for 20 years. Pei even claimed to have gotten pregnant and have had a son by Bernard.
My gosh.
So Bernard gave documents to the Chinese government to help protect Pei's position in the Communist Party. So the idea is the Communist Party knew that Pei was having an affair with Bernard, and they said to Bernard, hey, you got to give us something because otherwise Pei is going to get into a lot of trouble with us for associating with the European, right? And so Bernard did this to protect his girlfriend / wife / mother of his child, right? Bernard, in 1982, what were you doing in 1982? Because I was going to school. In 1982, Bernard brought Pei and his son to Paris, or their son to Paris. Pei was arrested for espionage, and Pei's identity was revealed, and Bernard attacked Pei and slashed his throat.
Oh my God.
Pei survived, and M. Butterfly apparently is loosely based on Pei's life. Never heard this. Never, ever. I've seen M. Butterfly. I actually went to see the play. And
yeah, I've seen it too. I've seen the opera.
Yeah, it was beautiful and boring.
Madame Butterfly.
Okay, so then we have two more. That's it. Marina, the ascetic monk of the 5th century, AD, CE, so the year 400, right? And her father joined a monastery, and she insisted on going with him, so she dressed up as a boy. They both joined the monastery. Her dad died, and she stayed on. Meanwhile, a girl around the monastery in the village got pregnant, and she blamed Marina, who was going by the male name Marinos.
Yeah.
Marinos was forced to leave the monastery and raised the child as hers for years until she died at the age of 40. Upon her death, she was discovered to be a woman, and they figure that she didn't say anything because she didn't want to embarrass the girl.
That's weird.
Crazy. Right. Well, I mean, here they are guessing later. I don't think that Marina left a letter like, I am raising this child to save that poor girl from embarrassment. She doesn't know. Of course not. Right. So, all right. And then our last one, Charles Dion, who was a diplomat who lived from 1728 to 1810. In 1756, he was sent by the French government to Russia to help establish diplomatic channels. He dressed as a woman and became a maid of honor to the empress. Later, he worked in London, where it was so talked about. Is he a man? Is he a woman? What the fuck is going on? Right? That bets were placed on the stock exchange as to whether he was a man or a woman. I mean, that's how public the debate was.
Wow.
Right? He returned to France, and he told everybody that he had been born a girl and he was raised as a boy because of some inheritance dispute happening in the family, and his parents just decided it was better to hide things, whatever, right? It feels a little bit like a bullshit line to me. However, the French king was like, yeah, sure, just make sure that you always dress appropriately as a woman. Okay, I'll do that. And then upon his death, discovered he was anatomically male.
Huh.
So,
interesting.
Yes, Billy, you are fierce and you are an icon. You weren't the first.
No.
But maybe you were the first not to get so much flack for it. I don't know. I want to give him something.
Yeah.
Applause.
I don't know. Applause. Yay, Billy Porter.
Double yay, Billy Porter. It sounds like it's not a yay, though. Oh, hey, did you know that Raquel Welch thinks that Mae West was a man?
No, I did not know that.
Apparently, yeah. And I think Raquel Welch is rather problematic, and not in terms of misogyny or sexism or anything. I think sort of she became super right-wing, but I could be wrong about that. Well, her and Mary Tyler Moore, our little Mary Tyler Moore, right-wing as they come. Yeah.
Mary Tyler Moore is right-wing?
Oh, well, she is dead, so now she's probably not still voting. She was very right wing. Yeah. Like,
what a bummer.
Like, would have been a Trumpist. Yeah, uncomfortably so. And so I didn't read why, because, I'm lazy. I didn't read why Raquel Welch. I'm just looking at this headline. But so here's my Hollywood brag. I remember in Hollywood when I was hanging out in a bar, talking with some older guy who was telling me all these really long, fascinating stories about old Hollywood, right? You can tell me anything from old Hollywood in the 1920s, and I am fascinated. I just love that period, right? Cool. So, and it's the first time and the only time that I had ever heard that Mae West was a man. So this guy claimed that Mae West was a man, and that the proof was going to come out 100 years after Mae West had died. And I don't know when that was. Bullshit, not bullshit. Did he pick it up from Raquel Welch? Probably, right? But yeah, so that's my story, and that's as far as it goes.
Mae West died in 1980, so wow, we had a long time to wait.
We're never going to know.
We're never going to know.
You and I will never know.
No, we'll be dead.
Okay, this is my raison d'etre. I must live to 2088.
Raquel Welch thinks Mae West was a man. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same headline I read.
Awesome.
But look at you coming in with the fresh breaking news. Oh, this is much better than Move. And I mean, that was a good episode, actually. But this one, this one I'm not going to feel bad when I walk away from the mic.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, yay.
So let's talk about the maturation of Who's Sorry Now.
Oh, yes, right.
Our Who's Sorry Now segment is growing and changing. It is now going to be sort of Who's Sorry Now and Who's Sorry Later, but we'll call it Apologies Expected. So for those apologies that we expect will be coming down the pike anytime now, people who have done things that need to apologize for, or people who have done things that we think they will apologize for. So the first Apologies Expected, Thea, would you like to go first?
I can go first. Second. Yeah. Why don't you go first?
My first Apologies Expected is a little bit mundane, but it's from Newark Airport. Newark is named America's worst airport for delayed arrivals, with a quarter of all flights arriving late, which is a lot of fucking flights. That's 1 out of 4.
Are you sure about that?
For those of you who don't understand math like me, that's a lot. That's like 40%. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's 1/40th somehow in math. I bet you could make that happen.
It's got to be. There's 1 out of 4. There's got to be another 4 in there.
It's got to be a 40.
So that's my Apologies Expected. Okay, what's yours?
Okay, mine is Apology Expected, and we're going to see if this one happens, right?
Yep.
Maureen Dowd.
Maureen Dowd, what does she do?
What hasn't she done? So Maureen Dowd is a journalist who writes an opinion piece writer who writes for the New York Times. And in general, I was going to say, when I was thinking about like Apology Expected, right? Like, who really is going to be who's done something they're going to apologize for later? And I went straight to the media in general, right? Because they really are fucking up the culture. I'm not one of these people that believes like the media has an agenda or the media is some coordinated. No, the media simply tries to make money, and they do that by creating stories they know people are going to buy or click on, right? And so we're all at fault and we're bad, and this is all on us. But okay, cool. The media still is over sensationalizing every fucking thing, and the Biden administration is doing good work, but you wouldn't know that in the media. Yeah. Jesus Christ. It seems like it's all falling apart. President Xi of China called Biden weak. And it's like, guys, you're not helping anything here. I get you miss all the sweet, sweet money you were earning under Trump when he was setting the country on fire, left, right, and center. But come on, you don't have to shit all over Biden just to make a buck. Right? Yeah. And so Maureen Dowd, this came on my radar this morning when I was like, it can't be the general media, right? And then I saw that she was trending on Twitter, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool, right? Let's see what's going on. What has she said now that makes people angry? And I read her article, and she's got some really valid points, because of course she does, right? You would be writing for the New York Times if you just wrote shit that made people, maybe you would if you just wrote shit that made people angry. And Coulter, I'm looking at you. But totally. I'm going to say this line really struck me, and it is, so she's talking about Biden, right? And the Democratic Party in general. And the headline of the piece is, "Wokeness derails the Democrats." And it's just basically how there's so much infighting and all this nonsense, right? All right, cool. If that's your story, that's your story. I mean, they just passed a $1 trillion public works bill. I think that's pretty amazing, right? They just ended the war. Maybe it didn't end as smoothly as people would have liked, but I'll remind everybody that Trump's the one who actually ended the war, because he's the one that made the agreement with it. He fucking called the Taliban on the phone and had a conversation with them. And I don't hear anybody, but whatever. It drives me crazy. I hate this. But so here's the line that really struck me as the centerpiece of media's hypocrisy, or the media just shooting itself in the fucking foot. It's like they're trying to set the country on fire. So according to Dowd, Biden has pursued his 2 bills with Captain Ahab-like zeal. He pines to be FDR and eclipse Barack Obama, who pushed him aside for Hillary.
What?
No, I mean, it's nice that you can paint that picture, Ms. Dowd, but I don't think that's fair. I mean, one, who wouldn't want to be FDR, remembered as FDR? Everybody would love to be like, American hero. But I think Biden's just simply trying to do what's good for the country.
Yeah.
And so to paint that kind of a spin on it is a way to sell papers. I get it. And it's
super annoying.
And whatever. But yeah, that, come on, media. So yes, 100 years from now, the media is going to turn around and say, oh yeah, God, we fucked up there. We should have been better. So journalism, raise your standards, apology expected, but I know I'll be waiting until hell freezes over.
I think I might get my Newark Airport apology before you get your Maureen Dowd apology.
I think I'm going to be finding out about Mae West before.
For sure.
So, yeah, okay. I like that. That's a fun segment.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll alternate that with Who's Sorry Now. Whenever we have something to apologize for, we'll be sure to admit it live on the air. I'm
sorry that I am not as fabulous as Billy Porter. And
I wish I were as fabulous as Billy Porter.
Oh, my God. I was going to say I don't wear clothing. That's not true.
I don't have the energy to be Billy Porter.
Yeah, that's true. Same here. or that's true for me. I'm not saying it's true.
It's totally true for me. I don't have the energy to be myself.
Well, I don't have the energy to be you, right? Because I'm not Juliet.
You're not Juliet, and I'm not Theo.
And
we will be back
accepted.
Next week with another Apologies Accepted. Yay!
Yay!
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye everybody.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.